I don't need a handover from you, high school dropout. I'll ask the elite staff, so just disappear already." With that, my boss Tom laughed condescendingly as he looked down on me. Just because I'm a dropout, do I really deserve to be treated like this? I struggled to hold back my anger, barely suppressing the urge to shout back. Understood. Tom probably didn't expect me to agree so easily. He looked momentarily surprised. To that Tom, I simply nodded in farewell and turned my back on him. If you want me gone, I'll make it easy for you. As I left the company, I thought about what might happen next. The following day, I was hanging out with my friend Sarah. That's when I received a message from Tom on my phone. "You're the one who told me to disappear." Ignoring the call to prioritize spending time with Sarah, I later noticed there were 100 missed calls. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Picking up the phone, Tom pleaded, "Please come back now. Without you, our company will collapse." My name is Jason Miller. I'm a 32-year-old father. My parents died in a car accident when I was very young. After that, my uncle took me in and raised me on his own. Despite his frail health and modest income, he always put me first. I'm sorry, Jason. I wish I could buy you everything you like. It's okay, I don't really need anything. Yet, he always put me first, trying his best not to let me feel lonely. He ensured that my meals were nutritionally balanced, while he only ate macaroni. Wearing worn-out clothes himself, he always made sure to provide me with new clothes as I grew. He was such a kind person. I'll work after graduating from middle school. I don't really aspire to be anything in particular. I was always grateful to my uncle. And to repay him as soon as I could, I chose to work right after middle school. If that's your decision, I won't stop you. But remember, job options are limited with just a middle school diploma. Yeah, I know. But then's a place that's willing to hire me. The job was at a factory that produced various products. It was the only place that would hire a middle school diploma, and I found myself working hard surrounded by adults. Fortunately, my colleagues were sympathetic to my situation and offered me advice not only on work matters, but also on personal issues. Jason, take this if you'd like. I made too much. Wow, thank you so much. Some even brought me food, and I was thankful for the support and encouragement from those around me. During this time, my uncle became seriously ill. Despite his savings, my earnings were quickly depleted by his medical expenses and my living costs. I'm really sorry. Don't worry about it, you took me in, and that's why I've come this far. This is my way of giving back. Every time I visited him, my uncle would look apologetic. I didn't really have any hobbies or desires for material things. That's why it didn't bother me much. Jason is such a kind and good boy, my uncle would say, smiling kindly. However, when I was 20, his condition worsened, and he passed away. Now, I'm really all alone. Mourning continued to color my days. The person who supported me through it all was Emily, who would later become my wife. Are you okay? You've lost important family members. If you're okay with it, I'm here to listen, she said. Emily reached out to me when I lost my family and supported me wholeheartedly. Thanks to her, I was eventually able to look forward again. We naturally started dating, and it didn't take long for us to consider marriage. Emily, will you become part of my family? Yes, I'd be happy to. A few months into our relationship, I nervously proposed, perhaps a bit prematurely, but Emily accepted with the brightest smile. Later, we were blessed with our daughter, Sarah, and I have been living happily ever since. We've got a call from that client. Thank you. Initially, I worked on the factory floor, but now I am in sales. Selling the products I once helped manufacture was incredibly fulfilling. It turned out I had a knack for sales. Many clients took a liking to me, and sometimes I was able to secure large contracts. I was determined to do my best and contribute to the company, but not everyone was pleased with me. Hey, a middle school diploma, finish this paperwork by today. What? But this isn't my job. Don't argue, low educated, just do as I say. That was Tom, the manager. He called me a middle school diploma and would often remark, despite your low education. As he did this, he assigned me unrelated chores and his own work. I'll take care of that. You have a sales meeting coming up, right? Thanks, I really appreciate it. While Tom was difficult, others around me were supportive. It's fine, without you, we couldn't even do our jobs. Although they tried to shield me, Tom, who had been transferred from another branch, wasn't aware of my contributions and looked down on me based solely on my education. Although some tried to explain, Tom would shut them down as soon as my name came up. Don't talk about that middle school diploma in front of me. Eventually, everyone gave up on explaining to Tom and instead came to support me. Anyway, I need to focus on my own work now. I have a family to support. I must work hard for both of them. I'm so tired today. When I got home and let that slip, Emily looked at me with concern. You've had a hard day, it looks tough every day. Yes, it is, but I'm okay. Trying not to worry Emily, I responded cheerfully, but she clearly frowned. You always keep things to yourself. Don't hide it from me. Faced with her words, I ended up venting to her about Tom. After hearing my story, Emily murmured, I've heard something about that. Heard what? There's a rumor in accounting department about a sales manager who is very elitist and looks down on those with less education. I never imagined it was true, let alone that you were the one being demeaned. Emily works in the accounting department of the same company. It seems that Tom's reputation has spread as a rumor to other departments. Knowing this, I couldn't help but chuckle. Should I speak to Mr. Miller about it? No, I don't want to trouble you with my issues, but if things don't improve soon, I might ask for your help. Okay, but make sure to talk about it soon. To Emily, who spoke with a hint of irritation, I nodded in agreement. Just then, I felt a bump on my knee and looked down to see Sarah grinning at me. Daddy, let's play. Of course. Feeling a bit lighter after talking to Emily, I smiled and lifted my daughter into my arms. A few days after my conversation with Emily, a famously tough major corporation expressed their interest in doing business specifically with me. Really, thank you so much. This news brought great joy not only to me but to the entire department. When it was just about getting the contract signed. Hey, I'll take it from here. What? To my disbelief, Tom claimed the credit for himself. While I was confused, he snatched the contract and headed out to meet with the client. Tom, that's really not okay. That deal was secured because of Jason. What are you talking about? It's just a coincidence he was handling it when the deal came in. It wouldn't matter who went. Despite the team condemning Tom's actions, he remained unfazed. A middle school diploma like you shouldn't be handling such important tasks. Just go sort out the warehouse. Commanding me to do menial tasks, Tom left proudly. Are you okay? As I was disheartenedly organizing the warehouse, Emily appeared. I wondered why she had come to the warehouse. Seeing my surprise, she approached, smiling. I heard from a colleague. Do we still need to wait and see? Emily asked, looking straight at me. Her words left me uncertain. This whole ordeal was truly shocking, and I couldn't help but wonder why it always seemed to target me. Yet somewhere deep inside, I still harbored hope that I might eventually be recognized. That hope persisted. You are kind and diligent, and maybe you want to be acknowledged at work, but I'll speak up anyway. Emily said as she left the warehouse. Hey, a middle school diploma. Are you involved with Emily from accounting? Tom, back from the client visit, asked irritably. What? She's my wife. I simply told him the truth, but he looked visibly displeased. Emily is your wife, a dull middle school diploma like you. Indeed, Emily is beautiful. Many men admire her youthful appearance, and perhaps Tom is one of them. Hey, introduce her to me. What? Tom asked with a smirk. At his words, I let out an incredulous laugh. I said, introduce Emily to me, he repeated. That's impossible. I can't just introduce you to my own wife. What? Don't defy me, you low-educated. Tom glared at me. But she was the one thing I couldn't compromise on. So, I firmly refused, but it seemed to have hit a nerve. From then on, he not only dumped work on me but also started to harass me. He would break my personal items at the desk or spread rumors about me. Everyone believed in me and knew Tom was behind it. Still, without concrete evidence, I endured days of harassment. Enough is enough. Surprisingly, it was Tom who backed down first. He glared at me, yelling, "You won't introduce me to Emily, you don't quit despite the harassment, and now you're getting cocky just because you ended a contract by chance. I don't need someone like you." What do you mean by that? Watching him rant, I somehow found myself becoming calmer. When I coldly asked him to clarify, he snapped, "We don't need low-educated people in our company, you're fired." I was stunned, not expecting him to be so blunt, and froze in place. Seeing this, Tom sneered. "From a middle school diploma like you, I don't even need a handover. I'll ask the elite staff, so just disappear quickly." Tom laughed condescendingly as he spoke. "Just because I'm a middle school diploma, does that really justify such treatment?" I felt a surge of frustration and anger, but I managed to restrain myself from shouting back. Understood. Tom probably hadn't expected me to accept so readily. He looked momentarily surprised. I nodded at Tom, then turned my back on him. "If you want me gone, I'll leave as you wish." As I left the company, I pondered what would happen next and muttered to myself. I called Emily to tell her I had been fired. "Got it. I'll talk to Mr. Miller. Can you pick up Sarah from kindergarten?" "Of course." Then, I went to pick up Sarah from kindergarten and returned home. "You've worked hard up until now. Take some time to rest." Deciding to take Emily's advice, I chose to relax for a while. "Let's play a lot tomorrow." Yay! Watching my daughter's delighted reaction was soothing, and I started thinking about the future. The next day, while I was playing with Sarah, I received a call from Tom on my phone. He contacted me again. "He told you to disappear, didn't he?" Ignoring the call to prioritize time with Sarah, I later noticed there were 100 missed calls. I couldn't ignore it any longer. When I finally answered the phone, Tom's frantic voice came through. "You finally picked up. What have you been doing?" Seeing Sarah flinch at his loud voice, I apologized and moved away from her. "You don't have to yell. I can hear you." "That doesn't matter. They told me our flagship product isn't selling without you." "Of course. I hold the patent for that flagship product." Tom fell silent at my words. "And, no way, that's a lie," he stammered, clearly shaken. During my time at the factory, I had tirelessly experimented every day to improve our products. The result was a patent technology worth $500 million. Recognized for my efforts, I was then employed in corporate sales. As the creator, I knew the unique advantages and quality of the product, which I highlighted to our trading partners. Currently, the company is merely licensing that technology from me. Tom fell silent again at my words. This technology was exclusive to me, and with my dismissal, the company could no longer use it. He seemed to realize this. Immediately after, he pleaded, "Please come back now. Without you, our company will collapse." I responded with a smile. "No, thank you. I've decided to spend the day with my daughter." With that, I hung up the phone and immediately turned it off. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Sarah," I said as she peeked out from the corner and rushed toward me with a big smile. A while back, the sales department was in a panic. Emily told me with a laugh when I explained the situation about Tom. It seemed that without me, the company's main product wasn't selling, potentially leading to hundreds of millions in losses and pushing the company towards bankruptcy. Apparently, my colleagues had fiercely reprimanded Tom for it. "It's a bit late for that, if you ask me," Emily commented. "What do you mean?" Emily had never liked the attitude of the sales department. They helped me, but only because of the patent technology I held. If they really cared about me, they should have made sure Tom understood properly by having a serious talk with him. They were just making sure they didn't get on Tom's bad side, she added. I thought about it and realized, that's true. They did help me, but never confronted Tom directly. When my accomplishments were stolen, they spoke up for me, but they quickly backed down. Even with the patent issue, they only attempted to discuss it initially. It felt like they gave up too soon. Of course, it was also bad on your part not to have confronted Tom directly about something so important. You should have worked with others to properly address it, Emily said. I am reflecting on that. That's good. Being silent isn't always a kindness. I nodded earnestly at Emily's words. I also realized that I had been avoiding a direct confrontation with Tom. That might have led to the situation escalating to this point. From now on, make sure you speak up, Emily instructed. Speak up. Suddenly, Sarah, who had come up to our feet, mimicked Emily, and we both looked at each other and laughed. The next day, when I went to work, my destination wasn't the sales department, but the president's office. Ah, you've arrived. I've also summoned him, so please wait a bit, Mr. Miller said just before the room was knocked on. Excuse me. Oh. Tom entered the president's office with a pale face, surprised to see me. Ignoring Tom, Mr. Miller started the conversation. I've heard about the situation. At this rate, our company might face bankruptcy. Upon hearing Mr. Miller's words, Tom's complexion turned even paler. How do you plan to take responsibility? It's all Jason's fault. He deceived me. Tom flistered under the president's questioning, insisting that it was all my fault. As I inwardly sighed at his behavior, Mr. Miller let out a deep sigh. I've heard about you too from my daughter. Daughter? Emily Miller from accounting is my daughter. Yes, Emily is the only daughter of President Miller. And I had married into the Miller family. How could I? You should have suspected the family connection given that there are 3 people with the surname Miller in the same company, Mr. Miller said. At this, Tom's shoulders slumped, and he began to speak in a subdued tone. I was jealous of him because he's young and capable. It seems Tom was envious of me for being young yet capable at work and had been harassing me. Despite this, he escalated things this time after finding out that not only did I not quit my job, but I also had a young and beautiful wife. He's definitely a middle school diploma, but he has contributed significantly to our company, Mr. Miller acknowledged. That's true, Tom admitted reluctantly. This time, on my own decision, I told him to use his paid leave instead of issuing a termination notice, the president explained. Indeed, my being at home yesterday wasn't because I was fired. Emily had spoken to Mr. Miller, and I was allowed to use my paid leave. I will consider an appropriate action for your misconduct, Mr. Miller told Tom, who then hung his head. After using up my accrued leave, when I returned to work, my colleagues apologized as soon as I arrived. We're really sorry for not being able to fully support you. Surprised by this sudden apology, I learned that Emily had confronted them, saying, "You all share responsibility." With a wry smile at her typical actions, I looked around the department. Tom was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Tom?" "He's been reassigned to the factory," someone replied. Tom was required to take responsibility for his actions this time. Mr. Miller decided that he should gain first-hand experience by working on the factory floor. A few days later, I decided to visit the factory during a break. "I'm sorry." Tom was apologizing to a veteran employee. Approaching him, I called out, "Tom?" "Jason." His face turned awkward upon seeing me. I invited him to talk during lunch break. "Okay." He reluctantly agreed. During the lunch break, "I'm sorry for the disrespectful behavior." Tom quickly apologized. Apparently, he had heard about me from the veteran workers at the factory. "You were really trying to help your uncle, weren't you?" "Indeed, our company produces medical devices." I had spent days experimenting to try to save my uncle. I'm not a doctor, and, being a middle school diploma, I didn't have detailed knowledge. Driven by the sole desire to help my uncle, I continued to develop the device. It could detect any minor illness and remove it immediately. That was the kind of instrument I was working on. Unfortunately, it wasn't ready in time, I explained. The device I completed was finalized after my uncle passed away. It featured a camera that could detect pathogens and remove them precisely according to a doctor's specifications. If it had been ready sooner, it might have saved my uncle. But it was too late. "Your uncle didn't make it, but my nephew did," Tom revealed. Hearing this, I stared at him intently. It turned out that Tom's nephew had the same disease as my uncle. While my uncle couldn't be saved, the product I developed allowed for new treatments that saved his nephew's life. I wanted to work for a company that could save people, even indirectly, but I realize now that I had strayed from that path. Tom reflected, apparently changed by the harsh realities learned from veteran employees. "I can't forgive what you did," I said. "I suppose not." "Do your best here. Make your nephew proud," I advised him. He nodded in response. Later, I was offered the vacant director's seat. "How about becoming my successor?" "I'm not cut out to be a president," I responded. My father-in-law had brought up the idea of me being the next president several times, but I had declined. If I had managed things better this time, we wouldn't have faced the threat of bankruptcy. "I'm not cut out to be president," I explained. Hearing this, Mr. Miller responded, "I see, that's unfortunate." I was content with where I was. However, unforeseen circumstances arose. "Sarah's going to have a little brother or sister," Emily announced. She was pregnant with our second child. Not only I, but also Mr. Miller, were thrilled by this news. "I need to work even harder now, to provide for my growing family," I resolved. I dedicated myself to working even harder. After some time, I found myself at the graves of my parents and uncle. There, I shared updates about everything that had happened and about our second child. "I'll keep striving harder, for my precious family. I'll save others in my own way," I promised. Just as I finished speaking, I was called and turned around. There stood my beloved family. "I'll be right back," I told them. With that, I headed back to my family. As I walked, the wind seemed to pass through, as if cheering me on.